And welcome to Let the Bible Speak, where that's what we want to do. We want to let the Bible speak. The world is going to offer you a million different suggestions on how you should live your life, but the world doesn't know what it's talking about. We were left with a guide, with a book that has all the answers we need. This podcast is sola scriptura, so we're a people of one book.
Just one sola.
No, just sola, yeah, no. But we are people of one book. My name's John Chetta. Josh Elder is not here today. You are welcome for that. We did everything we could to keep him at bay. But today we have a special guest and a return after a year of, I don't know what to call it, sabbatical from the show.
This is going great already.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I started the same way last time where I was like talking and then all of a sudden I'm like, and I don't know anything else. So Alainna Haddad is next to me. Hello.
Boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
Hold
Blast
your
from the
applause.
past. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What?
How are you doing, Alainna?
Oh, I'm good.
Wonderful. I'm glad you're here.
Mm-hmm.
And Cameron Wetzel.
Yep, I'm here.
So if you want to turn this off right now.
Please do.
Yeah, totally get it. But anyway, we were just debating on what we were going to talk about today. First, we do have to say that we were at the Reminding, having delicious coffee.
I don't know what he puts in his because he's, not right. But this is pure dark roast and it's delicious.
It must be the milk. I don't know.
Ooh. See, I drink it the way the Lord intended. So
No.
pure.
You say that the Lord intended coffee to be made this way.
I mean, he didn't mix it with milk. You did.
Well, that's.
Does it say that?
I don't know that. I mean,
This is we have no scriptural basis for either of these positions. To be very clear,
we'll turn to John Chetta and see. So anyway, we were going to talk today about several things. We were going to talk about string theory and many worlds. We were going to talk about the meaning of life. We were going to talk about what happens when we die. We were going to talk about whether aliens are real. We were going to talk about who wrote the Bible. We were going to talk about.
Are we?
No, I'm just throwing out all possibilities because we really don't know what we're going to talk about. But I think it's going to be something along the lines of how do we put our faith to practice in our lives.
that's the safe bet.
I think that is the safest one because
The alternative really was string theory, and in me and John talking for almost 20 minutes, we realized that no one wanted to hear anything else we had to say.
Yeah, that would be a very short
Even
podcast.
John and I were drifting in and out.
For you because you would turn it off in 5 minutes. So anyway, yeah, I think that probably a lot of people listening to this podcast, and I say a lot, obviously meaning the few of you, but we all find ourselves. You kind of said it before, like you cleaned up my thought where you were saying, it's easy to talk about your faith and maybe even rely on your faith when you're on the mountaintop, but when you're in the valley and things are harder and scarier and more uncertain. Is your faith, does your faith guide you through those? Is the Lord really your shepherd in the valley of the shadow of death? Or not? And I think it's not bad. Like there's not a moral judgment against you if you're one of those that are like, no, actually, I get mad at God when I'm in the valley and in my faith. Like I think that's a normal human reaction, but that's not where you should leave it. And so I think the goal of this podcast is to talk about how we can rely on our faith in the valley. If anything, our faith can be tested and strengthened in the valley because we see it being used and we see it kind of carrying us because our faith does serve us.
Was that a jab at me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I was just
do you wanna
teeing you
explain
up.
the
I was
jab
just
or
teeing you up.
Yeah, I guess
No,
so.
I misspoke before we started the podcast and I forgot what I said, but I was just.
Well, I can be a stickler.
Yeah, for
about
language.
And just because I think it's easy to, that's how people misinterpret things. That's how things go the wrong ways if you're not clear and concise with your statements. And I'm not saying that I'm the best at it, but I try
one of them.
I just try to be measured. I think you try to be measured too, as much as you joke about it. But initially it was posed as this idea of how do we use our faith for ourselves kind of thing. And how does our faith help carry us and all those things. And it's not that I obviously don't disagree with that concept in the sense that, like, of course, our faith is beneficial and helpful to us.
Right, but it's not a self-help book.
But yeah, and I think that's
I kinda got what
and the
you're
reason
saying.
I think that I initially react to that so strongly is because I think, if I'm being challenging here, like a lot of people do want it to be that, right? Like there is a component of like faith is this combination of self-help and folk theology all rolled
Yeah.
into one.
Oh, that's a great way of putting that.
And it's like, how do I improve myself? But also like, what deity rituals do I need to do to make sure God stays on my side and my team? And the heart of Christianity is not my will be done. It is his will be done.
Right.
And so I think that's the big push for me is just like, and maybe this is too experiential for me, like, but a big part of my journey has been like allowing, like the peace that I experience and the joy that I have is allowing my will to die. And then in all things, I seem to have more comfort and more, joy and all. So in that way, it is helping me.
Is it because it's kind of a recognition that you're not in control?
Partially. Yeah. I mean, I could see that. I think it's more of a surrender.
Sure.
Because
it's surrendering to
not in control necessarily, but more of just like, and I don't want to be.
Yeah.
I think that's a twofold shift, right? Like there's the acknowledgement that I'm not in control, and that's one step. But then there's a whole nother step of just like, and I'm not the person to be.
But do you think that there's some cognitive dissonance there with people where we can say, I don't want control. And granted, when control is taken from us, it can be freeing. I mean, have you ever I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example. But like when you were leaving a job or something like that, like things just you don't have the same responsibilities, whatever it is. I don't know. It's like there is a something very freeing about not having to worry anymore. But at the same time, we're always trying to take the reins.
Yeah.
Like reflexively, we try to take the reins. We feel relief when we realize we're not in control.
Sure.
Or I guess I say that, or people feel anxious, I guess.
I think both. I think it depends on the personality type. But I guess my comment to that would be like, I think that you're supposed to steer in to the want to do things, that taking of the reins component, but it's just how do you approach that? Is it your will or his?
Yeah.
Right? Like I guess we'll just do full personal stories. Like obviously my wife and I bought a house a year ago and it had some...
The address is...
and it had some stuff and we were like, it was really starting to like hit us financially.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where the surrender part of it was like, I was like, God, if you want me to be here, we'll be here. And if worst case scenario, we don't get to be here, we don't get to be here.
It's amazing. I just had this happen.
It was just a whatever moment. And I think it was not that I just still didn't have my hands on the reins. It's not that I still wasn't proactively doing things.
Yeah.
I was just truly at peace with like, whichever outcome you bring me to, it's whatever. Like we'll make it work however you want us to make it work. And so it was more of that surrender of what I expect to happen and what I think should be, more than it was like the letting go in that like metaphorical or physical way of just like, I release it all physically. Like,
right.
I'm still actively doing everything. I've just surrendered that component.
So I kind of had something happen. I really can't get too terribly into detail with it, but I think broad strokes, I think will get us there. But I'm in the process of possibly moving. We've got our house listed and we've got an offer accepted on another place. And, all of this happened very suddenly. I felt very led to make these decisions. Yeah. Normally I would do this stuff very apprehensively and probably talk myself out of it. But for some reason, I felt the go ahead. I just like, okay. And so I engaged in this process and began the process. And really for the first several weeks, a few weeks of kind of getting things ready, and look, money was going out and nothing was coming in. And it was just like, I got to a point where I was so, like, I felt led, comfortable. Robin would be like freaking out, like, what's happening? I'm like, the Lord will provide. We're good. We're being called to that. I can feel it. I know it.
Yeah.
And then one day, it just, I don't know, man, the enemy got in my head and I cratered. Like I had this massive panic attack where I felt like the house just fell on top of me. I literally, like, this might be oversharing, but just to tell you, like, anxiety and all this is real. I literally went into my closet because I couldn't look my wife in the eyes and like melted down. Like I felt like the pressure was just too much. And so I'm praying. And I felt, and look, I would love to say that I hear from the Lord every day. And like, I'm, a lot of times I'm riding on faith. Like I got that message then and I'm doing my best until you talk to me again. Well, the Lord spoke to me in a very real way. Sounded like Tony Danza, which blew my mind. No, I'm just kidding. But the Lord really did. I'm sitting there like, honestly, not well. I mean, if anybody would have seen me, I was broken at that point. And I just felt like the presence of the Lord. And this is what the message was that came to me, which is so outside of my personality. I said, why are you so worried? I have surrounded you with people that will not let you fail. My initial reaction to that was, what is that supposed to mean? Like, I literally out loud was like, what is that even supposed to mean? I'm like thinking, like, what am I supposed to go to? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what does that even mean? And I got mad about it. That's how I know this was not me, because I got angry. So I'm like, whatever, Lord. Okay, I trust you. I will put my faith in you. I don't know what that means. I don't know what, but okay, thy will be done. I'll keep doing it. And like a couple days later, somebody showed up randomly and told me that the Lord sent them to me. And they helped me out of this very particular big situation without any prompting. Bro, like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. But, and I don't, it's one of those, like, I can't talk about the details of it because it would actually ruin the story, I think, a bit. Not in the sense of how miraculous and amazing it was, but just I think it could turn it into a bad story, and I don't want to do that. I know. I just don't want to give people false expectations about,
Well, so
I get real sensitive about prosperity gospel type stuff.
What's funny is our stories are very parallel.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel any better. Because I had a moment where I felt beat down, broken. Same thing. I didn't.
You weren't like a little girl crying in the closet. You were like a man.
Well,
upright before God,
sometimes.
and
But I did go in my room and I was just praying, and I just, because same thing. I felt God lead me to this house. It was truly like paved in this way. And I remember I just prayed. I was like, why did you bring me here? Just to do this all over again? Because at our previous house, we had
felt like the Egyptians. Like,
at my old house, I had done all the things, and I'm like, I really didn't want another like round of like finding problems and doing all this stuff. And I'm praying and having this moment, and all he gave me, same thing. I'm not same conversation.
Hey,
I rarely.
That's why when you started talking, I'm like,
he goes, do it better this time.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh. So it's not all prosperity gospel. Sometimes God's like, here it is. Like, and that's all he gave me.
Yeah.
Do it better this time. And so, but that was that moment. And I'll say this, going back to like our expectations and letting go, it was only in that did I get to reflect on like how bad of a husband and father I was when the first house was putting us in some financial tightness, and I was working all these jobs, and I was angry and bitter and all of the broken things that I was. And then fast forward to this, and it was like I was still getting calls like, oh, you're gonna need a new roof too. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And it was that moment of like, he called me to do it better. And so there was no like, white horse moment for me. Like, but there was still that fact that when he interacts with us, that sets the trajectory. Whether it means that you're guaranteed like this better way,
well, right,
or if it means you tuck your chin.
Well, I had no idea somebody was going to show up and literally like somebody in my sphere randomly come up and like help me in this very specific situation. I truly did submit. I was like, all right, I'm not happy about that answer, but
just wanted you to
I know that you're God and I'm not. So, okay. But what about you, Alainna? You're sitting here kind of thinking, not sharing. Is it because we won't shut up?
Partially.
All right. Well, what do you think about all of it?
You want to give her a question maybe? Or
No, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, the trajectory of this episode. I think it's easy for y'all maybe to like, the first thing y'all did was y'all prayed about it. But the people who,
this is why
not
she's here.
what they're doing. Like thinking like in adversity, it didn't cancel out your faith, but it shows you like what kind of faith you have. Of like, am I gonna pray and like listen to what God's gonna say? What if y'all hadn't? What would have happened next?
Well, it's really easy to just talk to yourself. I used to do that all the time, and then I realized, wait a minute. I'm the broken one. Like, why am I seeking myself? And so you can turn that into a prayer. That's what started me realizing in those moments I need to turn to God. But
I think it's like you stop measuring your faith on how you feel and more on like how you're acting. Like I could think some really terrible things that are not necessarily holy, but I'm acting in a way that is in obedience to allow God the space to move. That even if I don't feel it, because I'm not going to all of the time, but I'm still like saying, I'm going to keep moving the way he wants me to. And that's the hard part.
We'll be right back.
So I guess,
Yeah,
I mean, that kind of comes to me in the sense of like, where do we allow the emotional, like kind of back what you were saying, mountaintops and valleys, the emotional components of faith lead versus the discipline parts.
Yeah.
You know, and are we people that shy away from the discipline of faith, which is truly like, you know, it's not just about, you know, what I feel or the comfort of it. And I think honestly, the best way to talk about it is like a marital context, right? Like it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not fairy tale stories all the time. It is, but it's also like tons of just work, you know, and grind. And that's the covenantal component of it, you know, is there's going to be times where you don't feel
they get
good.
better return for your work, but there's work.
Yeah.
You know, you get better return, but
yeah. And I don't say that to diminish any part of marriage. Marriage is beautiful.
Absolutely.
But it is hard. And anybody that's been in it will say it's hard. And I think so often we treat God more like a date than a marriage, in the sense that like as soon as we get uncomfortable or as soon as you say something I don't like,
wow,
I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Versus no, like we're here to work.
Yeah, it's
through
the
it.
on
Like,
again, off again relationship. You know, we're together as long as it's good, but
as soon as I don't like what you have to say, then I'm out.
Wow, I really, that's good.
Well, we don't know yet.
You came up with that for real?
I mean, I just said it, so I'm not citing any sources.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's that the songs have been written about it. Can you praise God in the storm? Can you know? I mean, it's when things are. It's really easy to say praise God when things are going great, but to have, and I think it is a discipline. I think you're right. It's a spiritual discipline when you're not necessarily feeling to know, you know, like you're not feeling it, but you know that it's true, and you're gonna act accordingly. Josh and I got a whole lot into Jordan Peterson the last time we were talking. I know you said you hadn't caught up to that one, but we talked a lot about it. And I don't want to do that necessarily, but one of the things that maybe I don't know if we touch on it or not, but one of the things that I find interesting about his spiritual journey that he's on is it started with, at least I feel like, when he started talking about it openly, he would describe it as he acted as if God was real. Like he was more about the discipline, you know, than I think the emotional side of it. You know, he was more about the discipline of faith, and like I act as though God is real and watching me. And look, I think that matters. I was talking to my youth. I think that can change things.
Could that be dangerous though?
Sure, but I also think
could that get to legalism pretty quick?
It can, and so I think it's part of a journey. I don't think he's arrived.
I'm just
and I think, again, getting to the many paths in that sense, I think we can find the Lord many different ways. And I think he's taking an interesting route. But acting as if God is real before feeling God is real, it can make changes. And the way I'll present it to you is like if you've ever had a really long, scary hallway in your life, and I mean literally like somebody's house that had a hallway that you didn't feel comfortable walking down. Have you ever had that experience?
No.
Okay. So I have.
Have you?
There's no way.
Guy in this room.
There's no way this is true.
Nobody's had this.
Okay, I'll give you a different example.
Please, because obviously
if you are walking out of a place late at night and you're walking to your car and you get that feeling like somebody's watching you, you walk a little quicker. You move a little, like you change the way you behave because you feel like something is there.
Sure.
And likewise, if I were walking in the dark by myself and I was worried about, I don't know, whatever, monsters or predators, take your pick, but I had the Lion of Judah walking next to me on my side, am I going to walk more confidently? Am I going to handle things a little differently? Am I going to walk a little slower? Am I going to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, or am I going to run like a little girl? That's my point. And I don't mean to like disparage little girls here. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk. That's the second time I've made a bad comment. I have a little girl at home. She's 2 and wonderful and very sick right now. So anyway, there's a difference between there is power in believing you are being watched one way or the other. And so if that is a,
do you think that's a healthy thing?
No, but we're not healthy people.
Well, I'm just asking questions.
As a stepping stone, I think that is an okay place to start.
Really?
Yeah. I think any place is a good place to start. And so I think that you can get to.
I won't talk in absolutes, obviously, because I think we all start in messy, broken spots,
Sure.
and we stay that way for a large portion of everything, and we're always being refined and growing, and and hopefully that's what these conversations are doing. But I guess one of the things that I always personally found challenging was like, if Alainna was a millionaire, okay, or let's say a billion.
Let's speak that.
Let's speak that out.
Yeah.
Let's speak that into the universe.
Let's say Alainna's a billionaire.
Alainna's going to be a billionaire.
And I know that everyone that's like close friends with Alainna gets $1 million. But I don't really like Alainna. But I like $1 million.
Yeah.
And I feign this relationship with Alainna in order to get that payday. Do I love Alainna?
Well, I don't think that's the same thing.
If you're acting as though, for what purpose are we acting if we don't believe it to be true? What value? Like,
I mean, I see what you're saying because you get the benefit of it.
You're
So
trying to say that I'm
benefit.
doing it for myself versus like, because again, if
I'm
you're
not.
saying
Look, I do think there's a difference between having like faking faith in the sense of like I don't believe in God, but I'm going to act like I do. That's not necessarily what I mean. I'm saying like if you're on the journey, like kind of, maybe this is just recovery talk, but fake it till you make it. Like if you're not there, go where it is, and maybe you'll get there. Do you see? I mean,
yeah. I mean, what do you think? Because I don't know if I'm with you there, but
look, that's not how I found my faith.
No, I'm not saying.
But
it
I
is.
think that is a potential way. That's why I don't have any problem with. And I've said it since the beginning when Jordan Peterson started talking like that, and people, oh no, I'm like, just give him a second.
Well, and I'm not saying that specifically about any one person, right? Like I'm not here to like nope, or maybe they're going to find like that's not what I'm referring to. I just think I don't know if we should. I hesitate.
I'm just telling you, I've seen people literally get sober, get clean off of heroin because they started praying to a God they didn't believe in, but God happens to be real.
So is that because they faked it, or is that because God is God? You know what I mean? Like, are we talking about prevenient grace and the actions of God despite us before our saving?
See, now you're talking about prevenient grace.
Well, I mean,
you tell me what you think that means.
It's the grace of God prior to our justification, prior to us coming back, like the return, the repentance, and all those things.
The faith that waits around the corner.
Yeah. So is that the power of God or the power of them? Because I would say that's the power of God, not the power of that person. The fake it till you make it component. I don't think when they're praying to God, even though they don't believe.
Yeah.
I still say that's God's power.
Of course, it's God's power.
But I'm saying it's not theirs.
Well, sure.
Well, then wait a minute.
I would also argue that I don't know a single person who is firm that I do not believe in God who's going to sit at home and pray, regardless of what's going on. There is something in there God orchestrated.
I think we're hardwired.
There is something that they believe in some capacity. Because if I don't believe at all, why would I bother?
And look, there's probably a lot of truth to what you just said. I'm just saying that people who have at least with their mouths professed that they did not believe in God, but because somebody told them, if you want to get clean and sober, you follow these steps, period. And do this. Put your keys under your bed at night. While you're down there, pray. When you need to get them in the morning, while you're down there, pray again. That's tangible advice that I mean, that's practical rather advice that I have been given in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I did it.
Would you not? I think
I was never a hard stance. There is no God. I just I didn't know what God was.
I think he opens doors in whatever way you'll hear them.
And that's my point. Is that there are I believe that it's God's action, not our action. So
for sure,
just the petitioning God, being uncertain, and not that opening the door. I think God can use that, and so that's what I was saying is.
Yeah, I guess I heard it initially as, if you do this, it empowers you to do that. And it made it sound like it was a very
I think, look, I do
activity.
think that Christianity has practical wisdom
100%.
for this world, which is why it's baked into everything.
But it has practical wisdom for the world that he created. I mean, it works because it was his
100,
working.
absolutely. Yeah. But I see the function of the Christianity kind of, trying to play out in a world that doesn't necessarily take the world that kind of takes the cultural side of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about Dawkins earlier. Even Dawkins recently called himself a cultural Christian, but
yeah, I guess, and maybe part of this too, dispelling my own bias, right, is that I guess I'm also just a little bit resistant to like that feigning of faith, in the sense of like, speaking of Paul, right? Like, if I can, speak prophecy, if I can do
tongues of men and of angels,
but I'm just a clanging cymbal,
Yep.
right? If I do
Noisy
not
gong.
have love, I am nothing.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to the nature of the heart behind the action, right? And it brings us back to like Old Testament versus New. The Old Testament was this attempt at legalism, but with no change in heart, And like a story I'm literally thinking about using for my sermon is I won't name the daughter, but one of my daughters, whenever I ask her to apologize, she does this, sorry.
Yeah,
And it's just like, that's the most disingenuous sorry on the planet. You did the sorry.
Right.
You did the physical thing. You checked the box, but your heart's not in it.
Right.
And I guess my challenge there is like, there's no good work being done in your sighing sorries, because your heart's hard and it's still made of stone, And I think that I have this, I guess, kind of just caution about encouraging that sighing sorry, if that makes sense, of like, go out there and just feign the Christianity stuff, even though your heart's not in it, And that's just a bias, right?
Oh, I feel like that is what shows the functionality of your faith. Like if you are just going to church every week to check the box and you're memorizing scripture because you think that's what you're going to do, how functional is that when something happens that it's tested? And I feel like a lot of times when it's not functional and it is just checking a box, then you feel like there's an absence of God when you are walking through something.
Right.
And so it's a matter of like, it's not our grip on God, it's remembering God's grip on us. Like that's the functionality of it. It's not functional if it's not real,
Yeah.
Well, I think that what she just said to me speaks a lot to like that earlier conversation we'd had off air kind of thing, where it was like, one of the things that we were talking about was like that compartmentalization component, right? Like, is the attendance to church, is the reading of scripture something that we participate in, or something that shapes us? Is that's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think I'll say this, like, in a lot of ways, I feel like as the church, we have maybe fallen away from that model where we've made church a place you go to and a thing you participate in. And it's just another thing on the activity sheet, like it's church and then it's baseball or soccer or dance or cheer or whatever, right? It's just another thing that we do over here, and it's not who we are.
Right.
And the flip of that, what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just like, this is supposed to be building who we are and the foundation of who we are. It's not just this place we go or this thing that we do or this activity we check off the list. And so how then do we make sure that we're not falling into patterns where we're just checking
but
boxes?
what comes first?
The
like, I mean, to expect somebody to show up to church with that already built in is unlikely.
It's fair.
And so I think to use the church, like the physical, say North Cross or St. Tim's or something, you've got a bunch of people and everybody's in a different place.
Absolutely.
In their journey of faith or their closeness with God and their dependence on God, recognized dependence on God. Everybody's in a different place. And so I'm sure I've got some people checking boxes that go to North Cross, they want to believe what everybody else believes. They're having trouble. They're there because they have questions and they want to, so if somebody came to me and was like, I want to know about the Lord, but I don't want to do any of the stuff to get to know him, I would say, well, you probably should start by doing the stuff.
Sure.
Like that's
but to the point, is that functional? If that's what we're asking, right? Functional faith. Do you think that the person that's just showing up and not ready to do the work, is their faith functional yet?
No.
I don't know. I'm asking.
I think that little void they feel, the God-shaped hole, so to speak, I think that it has a function to call them to the Lord.
Sure.
But is their faith carrying them, or their lack of faith carrying them? Well, gosh, man, I'd have to think about that.
That's why it sounds like it's more.
I really have to work that out. I don't want to answer that too quick, but my knee jerk is to say no. It doesn't feel like it. But I think anything that gets you to a point where you're willing to start taking steps and maybe start leaning into some of the disciplines. If you don't have it, some people, I mean, Josh Elder got hit over the head by the Lord, you know, that like, I joke with him all the time. Like he doesn't have his blessing, you know, like because he saw, you know, like blessed are those who haven't seen and yet they believe. And so, you know, there are people who I think that is part of their faith journey is excuse me, is maybe starting by going to church and, oh, wait, everybody's singing these songs. Oh, I like that song. I'll start singing that song. Wait, people are praying. Do people really pray when somebody's sick?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start doing that.
So to be very clear, too, I want to be, because I don't want anybody, as measured as we try to be in these conversations, like I don't want anybody to hear this and think that there is a certain way or a proper way, right? Like the way is Jesus, and beyond that, like all the nitty gritty is very individual.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that I talk about a lot with Josh is that me and him had very different calls, you know, and he had that very like, boom, like breaking through in the moment. And mine was like a chiseling and very structured and very disciplined and very, very slow and methodical and reasoning. And like, it was a very like just grinding and discipline focused, like a lot of intellectual component to it. Like, and for a while that like made me almost like angry at people that had those like mountaintop experiences because I would be dismissive of it. I'm like, you know, whatever, that's, you know, it's ridiculous. And it put a wedge there. And I've only recently come to a point where I can realize like God spoke to me how I would hear him.
Yeah, right.
I am a, you know, uptight, structured, disciplined guy.
What?
Surprise. You know, and that's how God talked to me, you know, and Josh, you know, is a more emotional and he can, you know, and that's how God spoke to him. And so God is going to speak to each and every one of us differently. He's going to shape us differently. Like there is going to be the reality of our experience with the Lord that varies from person to person. So I want to be very clear that we're not saying that like you have to follow the Cameron model of coming to Christ. Otherwise it's wrong.
Right.
But there is a point where I think we should challenge what we're actively doing and saying, is this healthy?
Well, I think that's kind of that's what we're talking about today is like that difference. And
I just want to add that
because I do think
right?
that there are people with the best of intentions and all the curiosities and desire for the Lord in the world, and that for whatever reason, they're not at a place where they think that their faith is carrying them. Like they're still chasing after it, and they're going through all the motions. But what does it mean? What am I just think that I think people can get complacent in that place where they've checked that box, and so they think that that's what it's about. But I've seen it. I've just seen people who are, you know, they're in church every Sunday, singing the songs, saying the prayers, talking the talk. But when something bad happens, it's like,
where do you turn?
Right. Like they're not necessarily, and I get that instinct, like to not necessarily immediately turn to the Lord. But I'm at a place now where that is often my reflex, but not always. You know, I mean, Robin has to remind me all the time that I'm not God.
Yeah.
And she's very good at it.
Yeah.
But I think if we, if we have a faith that we can't utilize, and I know that you don't, I know that you take issue with that.
I don't take issue with. I know what you're saying. I just want to be very clear that what we're not saying, right? That it's something to be used by us for our own personal gain.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the only, like, again, and I'm a stickler to.
Yeah, it's not a bottle of Pert Plus.
Yeah.
It's not, right. I get it. It's not just something, right. 100%. But I know that without my faith, I would not, well, I definitely wouldn't be right here, but I would not be, I wouldn't be alive at this point for sure. You know, I'm pretty confident of that. And so my faith has saved my life. Functionally saved me. And so I have to me, not believing in God doesn't make sense anymore. Like for me, like I can't deny who saved me.
Sure.
And so I don't know. Maybe this is the pastor talking, but it's like, I just want everybody to have that, you know, I want everybody to have that kind of faith where it's like, no, this.
When do you think you got there?
Man.
I mean, that's a fair question of this conversation though. When do you think you had that transition from, like, you know what I mean?
Well,
to being where you're like, I'm founded on this? Sorry,
definitely not in the beginning.
Yeah,
sure. Definitely not in the earlier stages for sure. And I don't, and what's really giving me pause right now is, I feel like maybe a second ago I was talking like I had it figured out perfectly.
Yeah.
And I don't. I'm still on that journey. Sure. I'm still getting to a point where
then that pushes the issue even further, which is if it's not like an on-off moment, right? Where like here I was not, now I am.
Right.
Coming back to this like metrics, like how do we know if we're being functional? What are the litmus tests that we can apply in our lives? Because I think that for some kind of practical takeaway here, right?
Whose
like,
drum we're marching to?
Yeah.
You know, where's our compass? Is it ours?
Sure.
I think I don't know though. That's a very good question. But I know Alainna knows the answer.
I don't know. What is the question?
What are ways that we can maybe challenge ourselves or test ourselves to see whether or not we're going, towards a faithful practice of our faith versus a compartmentalized attendance style, one where it's leading versus doing?
Well, I think there's moments every day in our lives that test the functionality of our faith. Like someone did you wrong when you're driving to this grocery store. And
I fail at those.
Don't bring up driving.
No.
Okay. No,
no, that doesn't count.
Someone at work.
That doesn't count. In your car, that doesn't count.
Yeah, that's the exempt zone.
That's the.
Someone at work did something that you hurt your feelings or whatever. Are you choosing to accept that you are never going to get an apology if that's the case? Like,
sure.
I feel like that shows functionality and just little things. And going to church every week, I feel like that is a very loud and bold statement of faith. Like you are showing up, you are stepping out, you're saying, I'm here. But when you go home at night and your kid is throwing a tantrum for the 5th time that day, or your wife is mad at you, that's how functional is it? That's like the non-flashy faith. That's the quiet and obedient faith it's like working a muscle. Like if every time something happens in your day, do you immediately be like, I'm going to control the situation, and then it ends up being worse or whatever? Or do you immediately go, I'm going to talk to God about it? Like it's like you got to keep working it until that's the first thing that you do.
Yeah. Or even I would, and say like, back to the whole compass comment you made of just like, what's guiding our hearts? I was thinking about, we're studying Corinthians in a group, and it's on the passage about eating idol meat.
Oh, yeah.
And it's this very idea that like you can be completely right in an action. You can be justified in your action, and you can still be sinning if you haven't considered how it's going to impact other people. And I thought about like the gravity of that statement, and it talked about, we were referencing other passages, about, it being Jesus's body, like the church being the body in Ephesians. And it was just like this really hard challenge. And something that came to my mind was just like, I change the way that I behave all the time. And I'm trying to more and more. It's like the biggest battle I fight because I know my kids are watching.
Yeah.
And it's this idea that even if I'm justified, like I can do these things, I'm allowed to do these things, there's more gravity because I'm like, what example am I setting for these kids? And I think to extrapolate that further as like representatives of Christ, as Christians, the question I always try to ask myself is like, if someone sees me out here living in this world, what example am I putting forth? Even if I'm justified to do the things that I'm doing, even if I, feel as though I'm right, to eat my idol meat kind of thing, am I causing people to stumble by doing so? And what's that behind the scenes motive? Am I willing to challenge my own ambitions to ensure that I'm not, harming Christ's witness? And I think that's a very real challenge for us.
Yeah, I
still is for me. You know what I mean?
So I quit drinking a year ago, and one of the things, I can get addicted to Skittles, and so it doesn't take much for me to start developing habits. And I was noticing as the sicker my father got, I was drinking more and more, and it kind of, I was convicted that number one, I tell confidently say to people, that you can rely on the Lord when life gets hard and when sad things are happening, and you need to rely on the Lord. And I was relying on the Lord, but I was also drinking a lot, to deal with it. And it was man. I was talking to my stepdad, my dad, and he pointed out that's like, I hate even saying it out loud, and I don't even know that he recognizes that this echoes in my head. But he pointed out, he said, when you drink, you don't look like a Christian. Yeah, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And then my sense of humor goes, like everything changes, and so it's like I realized, like, wait a minute. Like, am I getting into the trouble that, raging, alcoholics, all, like, am I getting into the quote unquote trouble that people are? No. But am I being the
witness?
Yeah. Am I witnessing? Yeah. Like, and I remember he's been on the podcast a couple of times. You know what? It was said in private, so I'll leave his name out. But another pastor was saying that the way that his line, and arguably, scotch and cigars is a kind of a practice of his faith. So he said his line is, if he's ever at a point where he cannot convincingly preach the gospel, that's sin.
Yeah.
Like that's his line. I'm like, that's a great point. And so I kind of saw that I was modeling, like, talk about cognitive dissonance, all day long I'm one thing, and then a couple of hours it fell apart in the evening, and so I decided I was going to let my drinking die with my dad. And so, that's kind of what I did. And now I do see, like, man, what was I modeling? I quit smoking when Robin was pregnant with Andrew, because I knew that I smoked because I saw my parents smoke, and it's that modeling
Same
behavior.
thing.
Yeah, 100%. And so it's funny that I gave that up, and now I think it's true. If you're not, I don't know how I took this turn. I'm sorry, y'all, but for sure, I think there's modeling the behavior, and I take that very seriously now. And,
I think
and
too,
to our children, it's. I guess that's why, because you were talking about how you were changing
example?
your personality is probably not the right word, but practices how you don't know self to model what it is to be a Christian father and a Christian man to your kids.
At least trying, right? Like, well, and I think part of it too is, like, I forget which one of the prophets. I don't know if it was Ezekiel or Jeremiah, but talking about the living water versus like these empty cisterns or whatever that we've traded it for. Is it Ezekiel or Jeremiah? Does anybody know? Anyway, just a few pastors that don't know the scripture. Don't worry
ridiculous.
about it. Whichever one it was, but
Josh,
what I'm talking about.
You would know, Josh.
The passage I'm talking about, right?
Yes, of course.
And it's just, I think about the drinking, or I think about all these different coping mechanisms, and that's a good question there too. Like another litmus test of, like, am I trading the living water for these empty vessels?
Yeah.
And am I trying to cope with empty vessels? Because they're fleeting,
yeah,
they're broken.
empty bottles.
Yeah, I mean, they're quite
Yeah,
literally,
right.
they're these broken containers that they can't fill that they can't fix us. They might feel good for a moment and good for a time, but ultimately it's a cope, not a fix.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, like, look, my faith did carry me, and I talked about it quite a bit in the podcast. You and I think that was maybe the last time you were on, is you were saying we were talking about loss and things like that, and but my faith certainly was a big part of getting me through.
Yeah.
But the devil certainly had a foot in my life in that situation, and I saw it was an interesting. It was like a TikTok theologist, but it was a really interesting.
It's usually a good start.
It was this was. The guy says that, I don't know what he was taking, but he was just tripped out of his mind and was like having this vision, and so who knows? But he said that he had a vision that he was between a line of angels and a line of devils. And that the devils were complaining about him. He's a pastor or something like that, an evangelist. And the devils were complaining about him to the angels, saying, he takes people away from us all day long and then sits at our dinner table every night. And I was like, man, what a...
Yeah.
And then I thought about it. I'm like, man, I even had, like, a little wet bar, like, is that what I'm doing? And I've even got an altar, you know? Like,
it's really tough because we're in the nuances of that freedom conversation, right? Like we're free. You know, I mean, Scripture is overt against drunkenness.
Yeah.
But not against drinking.
Sure.
And so it comes down to all of these very like nitty gritty personal nuances. Like, you know, because I'm not the guy to say, like, I personally don't drink. But again, I'm not the guy to say that drinking necessarily is overtly sinful. Now, drunkenness is expressly talked about in Scripture.
Yes.
But it is. You're in this personal journey of nuances. And I guess that's a hard spot too, is because, you know, coming back to this, is our faith functional? It's going to have to be a lot of introspection. You're going to have to look in the mirror often and go, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Are they for good, faithful, Christ-focused reasons? Or am I chasing the things of this world?
Yeah.
Are my hobbies, you know, I mean, I talk about it all the time with like Josh. Is I'm like, we feel guilty about our hobbies all the time, you know? And sometimes I'm just like, I can't, you know, I can go down the rabbit hole and become over legalistic to myself. And I'm like, you shouldn't exercise because you've made it an idol. And I'm like, okay, well then don't make it an idol. And then I go to the other extreme, and it's just, I guess transparency is like, we're all wrestling with this stuff all the time.
Yeah. Well, Israel's not just a clever name.
Yeah. Quite literally to wrestle with the God.
Yes.
I don't know, Alainna. What are your practices to see, like, in your life? What are litmus tests that you say for you? Sorry to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to.
A litmus test?
Yeah. What's a way that you question yourself and say, "Am I on the right path?
Am I leaning on my faith, or am I leaning on the world?"
When I say I have faith, and I'm going to church, but I'm sitting there and I'm overthinking, or I'm numb, or I'm not listening to a word that's being said, then it's like, okay, I'm just sitting here, or like I'm not relying on God at all. Like I'm saying I have
That's usually
faith.
when Josh is preaching.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
pretty much.
That makes sense.
But I'm saying it, but I'm not acting it, and I'm not making it functional. But I think.
Well, you touched on a word that's interesting. You said numb, and I wonder, like, is that, not to ask you, like, do you feel like that always? But I think that's a common. I think people feel that way. They get
Faith-wise?
Yeah, spiritually. Well, I don't know if it's their faith that does. It's not their faith that does it.
Well, let's. What do you mean by numb?
Just feel nothing.
Yeah. Do you mean specifically in your like emotions, or like to God specifically?
Everything.
Both.
Like, and especially like working in ministry, it's like if I'm burnt out, even like a human thing, I go to church Sunday and I'm just like, I can't.
Yeah.
I feel nothing about anything. I don't feel anything about what he's saying about God, or what God is saying. Like nothing is going into my brain or my heart. And
so how do you overcome that? What's your practice? What's your discipline?
You show up anyways.
Yeah.
You worship when it's hard, and you realize that like faith isn't just a feeling. It's a decision to step out and do it, and you keep doing it. And then you ask God to bridge the gap of, I'm saying that I trust you, but I'm not. So
let my words do the trick.
Yeah, like
please, Lord.
Make my words and my actions match.
Oh, I mean, I one of my favorite prayers is increase my faith. But then I'm always like, but don't do it in that
right.
Like,
that scary prayer.
But don't do it in the way where I have to like just increase it. Can you
increase
just give
it
me
without
more?
making me do anything I don't want to do?
Make me patient. Just don't give me anything that I have to be patient about.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that too. But didn't that speak to the will? Our will, and it's still in play. I have that all the time where I'm praying and I'm just like, I almost feel like a hesitation in my own prayer.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, because I'm still not dead to myself.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. Like, I'm like, your will be done, please-ish.
Yeah. But if it can align with mine,
or
if
like,
we can make this,
don't make me too uncomfortable, or don't ask too much of me, or like, you know, because I think about.
It's like that song from Maverick City, Refiner. It's I I like kind of refuse to sing it sometimes. I want to be tried by fire, purified. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to sing this actually.
Actually, Lord, I'd like a break from fire.
Yeah.
Could we have a regular kind of day?
Yeah. That's true. I that's funny. I do the same thing. I mean, I'm the exact same way. I'm praying and I'm like, oh, but you know.
Yeah, and that's us. That's us.
Just don't push me so hard.
It's our will and our flesh. And I mean, seriously, but if you think about it, like, and full transparency, it's everybody sitting in this room, right? Like, it's not like, but it's still there.
Not Yaelin.
Yeah.
Yaelin doesn't struggle with any of that ever.
Okay. Wow.
I'm just saying. I wanted to give Yaelin a shout out. She hasn't got one yet today.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That's Yaelin.
That's
her.
okay.
Yes,
that's embarrassing that you did that.
It's not me. It's how people remember her name.
I could remember her name without that.
You've done a lot less drugs than me.
Okay.
Obvious with your arm motions.
With what?
Your arm motions.
No, that's her. Anyway, whatever. They know. The listeners know.
Okay.
All right.
Are we going to be able to come back to the topic at this point, or
yeah, absolutely.
Somebody want to bring us there?
I feel like bottom line is accepting that.
There you go. Hit us with the bottom line, Alainna.
Your relationship with God means that you are inevitably going to have hard things happen, and ask yourself, how functional is your faith? Do you think that God just disappears when you are going through hard things, or have you worked through a way to keep it going and showing the functionality of in functional ways of not just like standing on the mountaintop and everything's great. This is so easy to have faith, but then the second you fall, is it functional?
Yeah.
Does it keep moving?
Is he your God, or is he your God in circumstance?
Yeah.
Like
that's good.
That's
Henderson.
Did you ever read? did you ever read the Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald? No. George MacDonald. Do you know who George MacDonald is?
No.
The Scottish theologian.
No.
He was C.S. Lewis's master, as C.S. Lewis called him. His theology is wacky as all get out.
Glad I didn't read him then.
It's interesting though. Interesting. It's just kind of wacky, and but he wrote a story called the Princess and the Goblin. That's it. But in it, there's this silver string, this magical silver string that guides you back, and that's to me like, you know, when you're out, this is how you get back. And so this string, and I think what he was writing about was you know, your faith. It's like you can go out into the dark places, but you as long as you're holding on to that line, and the Lord will bring you back. Like that's your way. So if your faith is the string that gets you back to where you need to be, you know, it's your tether. Yeah. You know, I think that's for me sometimes, even if I can't necessarily feel it, it's like I know I have that line. I know how to walk back. I know the way back. And so, you know, it can be a discipline. It can be, and your discipline can carry you a certain, you know, or get you through certain things.
And I think I like the word discipline, right? I just think it goes back to my ideas of what faith really is, right? And it's something we've all said and espoused in different ideas, which is just, faith is not intellectual assent. It is not simply like, I believe intellectually that God exists.
Right.
It is a true and inherent trusting of God. You know, and I think part of trusting in God is when you're in those valleys and in those hard spots, you just tuck your chin and you keep doing the things that you know to work.
Yeah.
You know, and an easy way I can do is like diet and exercise, right? Because I've got nothing else to my personality, that and kids. But, you know, I eat a very, very, very sad diet of chicken and rice.
Yes, your diet makes me very sad.
And it makes me sad too. But I say that to say, like, there's so many days where, like, you make the chicken, you put it on the plate, and you're looking at it like, I'm not here for it today. But you trust that process, and that you know that if I do this, and I do it again tomorrow, and I do it again tomorrow, and I do it again tomorrow, it slowly but surely builds
lowers
me to
the chicken population.
That's true. That is true.
Chipping away.
Or you make it easier and you blend it up into a chicken smoothie.
I wasn't going to talk about the fact that I blended chicken.
We have to talk about it.
You do.
We're going to talk about it right now?
Ahead.
Yes.
Okay. So
don't forget where you were, though.
In the difficulties of eating chicken, I used to eat it for breakfast too.
Y'all are going to vomit.
It's bad. I'm being honest
Pull
with
over
you guys.
if you're in the car.
So, I mean, I eat chicken a lot. Like, it's a lot of chicken. And I don't, like, it doesn't taste, like, when I say chicken, we're not talking about, like, sesame chicken. Like, it's not like this delicious entree. It is just boiled chicken and salt. Like, 100%. Because that's what you got to do, right? Like, and so I'll never forget. I went through this phase.
Have you gone through the canned chicken? Have you done that one yet?
I've done canned chicken. It's worse. It's drier despite being in water.
Fascinating.
Anyway, I want to get this story over with so we can get back to Jesus, if that's okay. I got to the point where I was making my chicken. I sat down with it one day, and I was just staring at it, and I was like, I can't eat it today. I can't do it because when food doesn't taste good, and most people don't realize this, it's slower to eat. Like you chew longer. It's just a weird phenomenon. It just takes longer to eat food you're not into. Like I can wolf down a hamburger.
Yeah,
but if you put bland chicken,
I'm apprehensive.
I'm like, and you chew longer. It's just a long process. Yeah. And I was like, I can go through 20 minutes of grinding through this chicken. Or I can put it in my Ninja Bullet. I can make it into a smoothie. And I can chug it in like less than 2 seconds. And so I went through this phase where I blended my chicken and drank it.
Oh, there you go. A phase? You don't still do that?
No. I switched.
Lord. My prayers have been answered.
Just grill it.
Anyway, not the point of this story.
Yeah, no, for sure. Right, yeah. Go ahead.
To be very clear. But it is, though, the point of like the fact, I know it's a parallel that I'm making, but it's the idea that when I'm in that moment of diet where I'm like, I don't want to do this again, but I trust the process. I trust the results that are going to come. I trust what's coming if I just keep grinding.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, like the difference between that original tension we had with the fake it till you make it component and like faith, which is the, like, I might not be feeling it right now, but I trust Jesus. I know what he said is true.
Yeah.
I know these practices will bring forth what I need in my life. And even though I'm not feeling it, I trust him. I trust this process, and I'm just going to grind through it.
Thus far,
to some degree,
to me,
right?
is is powerful, and I thought that's for me just thus far, like kind of that.
He's brought us thus far.
Yeah. You know, the Ebenezer Stone. You know, like thus far, the Lord has carried me, and I was challenging my life a lot more in the past, and the Lord still carried me. And that's that prevenient grace that we were talking about. I am a product of prevenient grace, definitely.
We all are.
And so, yeah. I think that your faith is, I think it's part discipline, like part practice, but and it's not always as it can't be about like how good you feel. It can't be about like your faith isn't. I just think that people imagine that when life is tough or they're in pain or something bad happens, that means that God has left them or God is angry at them or God isn't real. Like those are like there's like.
But it can shape those moments too.
It absolutely can.
You know, and I think that's like the both sides of this, right? Like there is the grind. But there is the part where the faith, like, for your language, helps us, right? Like, my dad, when he died, like, it was sad. Don't get me wrong. But, like, God has done so much in me up until that point that when he died, like, I'll never forget, and I say it now all the time. Like, I remember saying it at his funeral, and everybody that would ask me, they were like, are you sad? I'm like, yeah, of course I'm sad, but I'm happy that I'm sad. And they were always like, what do you mean you're happy that you're sad? And I was like, because I'm sad, it means that I had something to miss. I had something to be sad about, you know, and how many people didn't have this relationship with their father, didn't have this person to reflect on, didn't have all of these things to be sad about, right? Like, I'm sad because something of value was lost. To me,
100%.
You know what I mean? And I was able, only from what God has done in my life up until this point, to be able to spend time on that and being like, how lucky am I that I had something to lose? Versus if you'd have taken me 10 years ago, I would have been, this was stolen from me. It wasn't fair. He died. He got cancer and died suddenly. It wasn't like, I would have gone down that negative rabbit hole of like my injustices and my viewpoint instead of being able to look at it and go, how beautiful it was that I had a dad that I can miss, you know?
Yeah.
And so I say that to say, like, it's both and, right? Like there is the grind your teeth and tuck your chin and just trust God despite the fact that it doesn't feel better. But there is a component where like you also are changed over time, you know?
Right.
And it does impact the way you experience things.
Yeah. And I think that's probably distills it down. I think that's what a functional faith does. It's not just a practice. It's not just that. It actually does change you. It changes the way you respond and the way that you think. I think that's an excellent way of representing what a functional faith is in that exact moment. Being able to be changed like that. Because 10 years ago, you were going to church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
But
100%.
Right. It's a journey for sure.
Yeah.
And,
I was calling myself a believer. I was, yeah. I mean, and look, house to house, right? Like he told me to do it better. And I truly feel like I did. And all of those moments and challenges have come from the fact that, again, now I'm more of a slow grind kind of guy, but I mean, it's been him just etching away at that stone in me, you know, and putting a little bit of flesh at a time. And, and that's, I guess, the whole idea behind sanctification, right? Like, are we changing?
Right.
Are we growing as people in God's grace? Is that Holy Spirit living more and more inside of us and guiding us more and more, or are we stagnant?
Man, well, I think we got all that we can out of this one, at least for today.
I feel like we're all over the place, so I
that's
apologize.
That's all right. No, man, that's look, that's what happens when Josh isn't here. But I love it. I love rabbit holes, and so. Do you want to pray us out, Alainna?
Why do you always do that?
Because you're here. No,
but if you know Alainna, that's like the one
no,
thing she
don't
would
be
rather
like
not
that.
do.
I'll pray. I don't mind. It's not like I'm trying to pass it off. I just was.
You're never trying to pass it off.
Should I pray, or would you like to pray?
I can pray. You want me to pray?
Yeah, go ahead, Cameron.
Gracious God, we thank you for this time. We thank you for the breath in our lungs, the ability to come here and to talk and to wrestle and to try to articulate the amazing and powerful work that you are doing in our lives and in this world. God, we just pray that your will continue to be done, that our hearts continue to be changed, that you continue to make the wonderful impact on this world, that your kingdom can come here, now, in this day, in this life, in everyone we speak to and everyone we touch, Lord. So just continue to work on us, continue to guide us, continue to grow us, fill us with your Spirit, guide us in your way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to Let the Bible Speak. If you'd like to support us, subscribe to the podcast by clicking that little plus symbol on your phone until it becomes a check mark. You can also share these episodes with a friend. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at letthebiblespeakpodcast@gmail.com. If you write us at letthebiblespeak@gmail.com, we will not receive your email, so make sure it is letthebiblespeakpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks.